So several students had requested that I record my last lecture speech from this year. If you don't know what that is, you just browse your way through, happen upon this video, stick around, I'll explain what that is, and please watch it to the end. Never know, you might learn something. So I don't know if it'll be quite exactly the same as the way I did this in class, but hopefully it'll be close to it, and then that way you can go back and re-watch it anytime you need a little bit of help or encouragement. So, as I said, this is my last lecture from this year, and explain a little bit of background of what that is in case you didn't know. And that is, many times over the years, students have asked me, when are we going to use this in life? When are we going to use all this stuff about velocity and acceleration and electricity and light and sound and all that stuff? And that's a very valid question. All the times you think about, we spent all this time, 10 months, learning all this stuff, and are you really going to use it? And so I kind of pondered that question back when I first started teaching, and I thought, am I really doing good for my students? Am I really accomplishing something that they can use in life? And the answer to that is yes, it is valuable to learn this, but to be honest, not everyone's going to go into science. Some people will, so they'll use this specific information, but other people necessarily won't. And so I thought, well, is it valuable to them? And I think it's valuable to learn, but truth be told, most of what we learn in school that's most valuable to us has less to do with academics and more to do with the kind of person that you become along the way. And so I was kind of thinking about this a long time ago and wondering, was there something I could do for my students that would be geared toward that would be something they could take with them to help them as a person more than academically. And so kind of what brought this home to me was a man named Randy Pausch, and he might be mispronouncing that name, but he was a professor at Carnegie Mellon University. And apparently at this university they had a tradition where on the last day of class, the professors could speak about anything that they wanted to, and they called it the last lecture. Now for this man, the last lecture became particularly significant because he was diagnosed with a terminal illness. I believe at the time they gave him just a few months to live. And so his last lecture speech became very focused on what would I tell my students, my family, my friends, if it was literally the last time I was going to talk to them. And so he came up with this speech that was about things that are really important in life, and you can actually probably go watch it still on YouTube, and it got put into a book called The Last Lecture. He said a lot of very good things, and he has since passed away, but I thought about that. I thought, I could do something very similar. I could give a last lecture speech. Now, I'm not dying, but the school year is about to end. And so, maybe at the end of the year, I could give one last, final class. We could devote one whole class period to not anything related to science or anything academic at all, but more along the lines of what could help you in life. And I could call it my last lecture. And so I've done this every single year where I write each student an individual personalized letter, which I'll give out, at the end of the speech when I do this in person. And then also give some kind of speech. I'll say some similar things and some differently, kind of give it a different theme each year. And so my theme for this year is arrows of purpose, and I'll explain what that means. When I was in 6th grade, we had an archery unit in our, I think it was gym class, and I look back on it and I wonder at the wisdom of giving 12-year-olds, bows and arrows all at the same time, but they did, and they had safety protocols and all this, and I'm really excited about getting to shoot a bow and arrow. I'm going to be the next Robin Hood, and I'm going to shoot the arrow right at the target. It's going to be so fun. Well, we get the bow, and I'm not a big person now, but I was even smaller then, this little tiny 12-year-old kid, and they gave me this bow, and it was taller than me, and so I'm pulling back on the string and I'm kind of testing it out, and I think to myself, we got a problem here, because I can't pull back on this string. I can't even pull this thing back to fire an arrow. Well, I gave it my best shot. I put the arrow on the string and I tried to haul back on it, and my arms are all shaking, and the arrow did not even make it to the target. So much less than getting a bullseye, I didn't even get the arrow to the target. And so that killed my dreams of being Robin Hood. But it also made me, thinking of that story, made me think about that life can be like that, or people can be like that. That all of us have an intended purpose, a target we're supposed to go, things we're supposed to do or accomplish, or things that we're able to accomplish with our lives, but we don't always get there. That not every arrow reaches its intended target, but that can be fixed. And so I want to think first about the purpose of arrows. If you're firing a bow and arrow, it has a purpose. You're shooting at a target. It could be in hunting. you're shooting a bow and arrow, or perhaps a crossbow or something like that, at a deer, preferably one with a lot of points that's going to make you all famous on social media when you kill it. Or perhaps you're just target shooting. You're aiming at target drawn on a tree, a hay bale, or something like that. But the point being that arrows are not usually fired randomly. They have a specific destination. And like an arrow, your life was meant to go somewhere and accomplish something. See, this means something. Your life was not random or accidental. You're not a mistake or a screw up. So, I know we joke about things like, oh, well, I was the last child born in my family, so, I was an accident and so on. But that's really not true, that you were not an accident. Your life is not meaningless. You're more than just a collection of molecules, atoms, and things like that. You're meant for more than just existing, that your life can count for something. You heard this kind of joke, quote, could be the purpose of your life is to serve as a warning to others. That's not really true. Your life is meant for more than that. Your life has value far beyond what you could dream. You're not worthless. You're infinitely valuable because you never know the potential of what you could do with your life, how it could become a blessing to other people, how the world could become a better place because of you having been here. You understand, if you could fully grasp that potential, it would change your outlook on life. I never met a student that had zero potential. And I say that in all honesty. I don't have to lie to say that. Every single student I ever had, in the hundreds, maybe thousands of students now, I saw that each one of them had potential, the ability to do something with their life. If they would just make these little decisions or change these little things, just make some right choices along the way, that they could do great things. Now, granted, some people were closer to realizing that potential than others at that point in time, but everyone had potential. That means your life is too valuable to waste on dumb decisions, too valuable to waste on drama and conflict, too valuable to waste just with your face buried in your phone in a game, too valuable to waste just chasing popularity and validation from other people, whether that's digitally or in person. You're too valuable to waste time on those things. Your life was meant to be a blessing and a help. Not just to yourself so that you could have a good life, but to everyone around you. Everyone you meet was supposed to be better off for having known you. The world was supposed to be a better place because of you. And you're still young. That can still happen. It's one thing to tell an older person that, they still have value or potential. They're near the end of their life. They don't have much time left. But you have your whole life in front of you. You're sitting here watching this, if you're one of my students or a high school student between 14, 18 years old. You've lived less than a quarter of your life. Don't write off the rest of your life because something that happened to you just in the small little window of time that you've been here. That you can write the rest of the story to be whatever you want it to be. And see, that's what's supposed to happen. Your life is supposed to go somewhere, but sadly that doesn't always happen that way. You see, like an arrow, a person can be broken. A physical arrow can be broken. When I was a kid, I made a bow out of a stick and string. I got a thin dowel rod and I taped paper feathers to it, and I made myself a little bow and arrow. But being a little kid, I broke the arrow. So of course I tried to tape it back together and tried to fix it, but once the arrow was broken, it didn't fly anymore. We can become broken arrows. That's not what was intended, but we live in a broken world. And in countless ways, we can become broken. Not on the outside like a physical arrow, physically broken, but we can be broken on the inside. You can be broken mentally. You can be broken emotionally. You can be broken psychologically. All kinds of things can happen on the inside where you become a broken arrow. You can be broken by people. People speaking words to you. You'll never be this. You'll never amount to that. You'll never be this. You're always going to be. You always do this. Why can't you be like brother or sister? Why can't you do better? Speaking words to you. I remember I was about 13 years old, and I was listening to my father and uncle talking, and they didn't know that I was listening. And my uncle is bragging on my cousin, who was about my same age. And he's going on and on about how great my cousin is. And he's saying, well, he's responsible and he's smart and I can trust him and all this, that, and stuff. And so I'm listening and I'm thinking, well, I can do all those things. I can be like that. I'm not a bad person, And then he quits talking. And now it's my father's turn. And so I'm listening to hear what he has to say about me. And he doesn't know that I'm hearing. And all he says to my uncle is, I wish my son was like that. And that hurts you on the inside. Something happens. Now, I found out later that my father did believe in me more than I thought. My father's a very good man, and we enjoy a good relationship today. But at the time, in that moment, something breaks inside of you and says, if that's all that he sees me as, then I must not really be worth that much. So maybe it was the words that parents spoke. Maybe it was the words of your peers. Maybe they said it to you in person, or maybe it was just on social media, but they said things that hurt you and broke you. Maybe it was through actions, perhaps actions of rejection, where you tried to make friends, you tried to fit in, and it just didn't seem to work. People pushed you away or ostracized you. I remember when I was in college on the track team, we would travel to these meets, and so we'd get to the hotel where we were going to stay, and the coach would get the room key cards and he would pass them out to the seniors. And then the seniors would, kind of pick out who they wanted to room with. And so it'd be like 3 or 4 people to a room. And so people would start to group up by 3s and 4s and who's going to room with whom. And more than once I was left standing in the hotel lobby by myself. Everyone else paired up and they went off to the hotel room. And I was left, nobody wanted to room with me. And I used to think to myself, what did I do to these people? What's wrong? What's fundamentally wrong with me that nobody wants to be around me? Am I doing something wrong? Am I being rude? Do I hurt? What's wrong? And I felt rejected. Maybe people didn't keep their promises to you. They're supposed to be there for you. They promised to and they did not. Maybe they walked out on you. Even worse things, abandonment and abuse. And those things break us. So we can be broken by other people. We can also be broken by failure. Maybe you failed at something at some point, failed a class or failed a test. Maybe you failed at sports or an activity that you tried. You lost more than you won. Maybe you didn't measure up to your own expectations. You have high expectations for yourself. I'm going to try harder. I'm going to do better. And you kept falling short of those. Well, this school year it's going to be different. I'm going to get A's this school year. I'm not going to fail any classes, but it was always the same. Or maybe you didn't live up to the expectations placed on you by other people, maybe by your family. They expect you to behave a certain way. They expect you to get good grades. They expect you to succeed, and then you don't. When your best sometimes perhaps just isn't good enough for them. And you think to yourself, well, I can't measure up. Or maybe you were broken by your own poor decisions. You make no mistake, what you do does matter. It does affect you. And when you do something wrong, it hurts you. There are consequences to that. I know the world says, you do whatever makes you feel good or do whatever you want or follow your heart, but actions do have consequences. You can mess yourself up. You can mess yourself up physically. If you've ever taken a driver's ed class, they show you those videos, those horrific crashes and how people died horribly and stuff because of poor decisions they made while driving. Now that's a drastic example, but it's true in every area of life. The decisions we make do affect us. Not just physically, they affect us mentally. They affect us emotionally. In one way or another, you're not flying where you're supposed to. You can be broken by life. Things happen that we can't control to us and to our families. There's physical things. We can't control illness. We can't control injuries, perhaps physical injuries that would happen. We can't control the family that we're born into. There's certain family situations that were created maybe even before you were born. Or if they were created after you were born, you had no control over that. Adults made decisions. Families were broken or separated. Maybe it's money, your family was poor, you didn't have any advantages or the same advantages that other people have. And you don't control all that or get to choose that. And maybe it wasn't the greatest. You can be broken by those things. But whatever the cause, broken arrows don't fly properly. My toy broken arrow wouldn't fly anymore. I tried taping it back together. I put it all nice and neat together and I wrapped tape around it. On the outside it looked straight, it looked whole, it looked like it was in one piece. But on the inside it was still broken, and when I went to shoot it, it would just wobble and it wouldn't fly anymore. You see, when we're broken inside, we don't fly where we're supposed to. We don't become all that we could be. This could be by choice. Being broken becomes an excuse to be lazy. Why try if I know that I can't? Why bother if I'm just going to fail anyway? If this all people see me as, if they just see me as a loser, or they just see me as stupid, or they just see me as a failure, then there's no point in even trying. I'm just going to stay right where I'm at. I'm not going to dare to venture any further. I saw this video. This guy had a bunch of teenagers on a line in a field, and they were going to race across the field, and the winner was going to get $100. But before they start the race, he tells them, okay, if you grew up in a family with two parents that are still married or still together to this day, step forward. And so they take one step forward. And he said, if you grew up in a home with so much amount of money, income, take another step forward, and so on. And so the point he was trying to make was that life is not always fair, that people start out with more advantages than others. These people are getting a head start in the race. And so they start the race and everyone takes off. There are these two guys standing on the line who didn't get to step forward. They didn't have any of those advantages. And they chose not even to race. They didn't even bother to run. And that's what we can do. We don't even bother to get in the race. We bother to run. If I'm just going to lose anyway, what's the point? Or maybe we try to fly, but can't. We still want to do well. We hear encouraging things, they say, next time it'll be different. Yeah, I'm still going to try. Yeah, I can overcome those disadvantages. I can overcome the things that happen to me. I can, forget about the things that people said. I can put that behind me. And you still work hard. You're determined to do your best, but it doesn't seem to work. The things from the past that broke you are still inside there. They're still affecting you, and you can't seem to leave them behind. So it's possible that we can be broken. Now, I don't say all of that just to dredge up painful memories, or just to point out that the world's a broken place, or people are imperfect. We know all that already. But I point out all of that to say that no matter what has happened to you, no matter what your story has been to this point, it doesn't have to stay that way. That broken arrows can be healed. That the rest of your life does not have to be dictated by some things that have happened in the past. I heard someone once say that you shouldn't let one chapter or one page of the book of your life write the rest of the story. You have how many pages left? I mentioned earlier, you're still young. You still have 30, 40, 50, hopefully even 60 or more years left of life ahead of you. The rest of the story is unwritten. Don't write yourself off. Don't write the rest of the story or tear out those pages and assume that it's over, because it's not. That the past does not have to dictate. That there can be healing that happens on the inside. The brokenness doesn't have to stay broken. Because there is no brokenness, no hurt that can't be healed. And that can be hard to believe. Oh, I believe it for other people, but not for me. You might encourage other people, oh, hey, it's going to be okay. You can do this. You're a great person. But you can't believe it for yourself. So maybe it's presumptuous of me to say, just one little speech like this, and all of a sudden your whole outlook on life just changes just like that. Maybe that's asking too much. But what I could ask, perhaps, is that you have just a little bit more hope. That when you wake up tomorrow morning, after having heard these words, something inside is just a little bit different. Just a little spark that says, you know what? I do have worth and value. You know what? I don't have to be like that. I don't have to be put down by those words. I don't have to be hurt by those actions. I can be healed. I can go forward. I can still fly. Just that little bit of glimmer of hope that you can grab onto. I said earlier, I never met a student with no potential. See, I can see where your life could go. I can see the potential. But the question is, can you see it? Do you see the worth and value of your own life? What could you be if you let the past be the past? If you put it behind you? What could happen to you if you were healed? If it was like those things never happened, where you could talk about them, like the things I'm telling you now, the experiences that I had. I'm telling you about them, but I'm also telling you that they don't affect me anymore. What if that could happen for you? Is there enough hope inside of you to believe that is possible? And I know of no better way to prove this than to tell you a little bit of my story. Now, a little disclaimer here. I was raised religious, and so that was my background. That was the culture I grew up in, from the time I was born, basically. And so it is involved in my story. That's a part of it. It's part of my life. And so I just want you to understand that I absolutely respect you, no matter what you believe about God or any of that for that matter. No matter who you are as a person, I absolutely respect and care about you. And I'm not doing this as a way to condone any particular creed or religious faith or anything like that. I'm just doing this to encourage you. So anyway, I throw that disclaimer in there. So one way or another, when I was your age, I didn't see myself as being worth anything. And I looked good on the outside. Everything seemed okay. I got good grades in school. I started running track and cross country, and I was successful at that. And if you looked at me, you'd say, oh, that person's going places. You know, they're a good student, they're a good person, they're going to succeed. But see, I didn't feel that way on the inside. And I shared with you some of my experiences. And those were only a couple examples, but other things all leading me to believe that I'm not really worth something. I felt like I was a fake. I've got everybody fooled. You know, they all look at me and they think, oh, success story, but I know that I'm really not. Inside, I felt broken. And I thought it's only a matter of time before they figure it out. I know that this is going to end in failure. I had no confidence in myself. But of course, growing up, you know, religious, I used to hear all the time that there was a God that loved you, no matter who you were or what you had done. And I saw people that were different. They were happy. It seemed like that, you know, they accepted that. And, you know, that really, like, I don't know how to say other than it like, sparked something in me to say that, you know, I want that. You know, what's different about them and me? And I finally just said, you know, God, if you're real, you exist, I need some help. So I was like, I don't even know, God, if you're really real. I don't know if this is true, what I've heard my whole life. This is just what I'm doing because this is what I know to do. This is how I've been raised. I need to know that I'm worth something. I need to know that my life can count for something. I want to be different. I don't want to feel this way anymore. And so what happened in that moment was like having this heavy backpack just lift off me. This weight just gone all in one split second. And that kind of threw me off. It kind of rattled me because I didn't really expect that to happen. I didn't know what I expected to happen. I just spoke this out of desperation. But from that point on, something was different. I was still the same person. All my experiences in my life up to that point were still the same. But now, instead of leading it to me to be broken, now all of a sudden there's hope. That tomorrow I don't have to be like I was today. That what happened today does not have to change me for tomorrow for the worse. That instead it can change me for the better. And so from that point on, even if there were ups and downs, even if I failed, even if bad things happened, that hope was still there, that because I'm worth something, because I don't have to be broken, I can still fly. And even if I don't get there right away, even if things aren't perfect, I miss the mark sometimes, I'll get there eventually because I was no longer broken. And that experience changed me. And so my hope for you is that somehow, some way, you find the exact same thing in your own way, under your own circumstances. That whatever has caused a brokenness in the past, whatever things have been said or done, that you can put those behind you. So all I ask you to do is be willing to let your life take off. Believe that the same thing that happened to me can happen to you. You don't have to be broken. You don't have to stay the same. That your life can count. That you have a destination and a purpose. Take aim at something worth shooting for. Say, I want to make a difference. I want to be somebody who helps other people. I want to contribute something. And take your shot. Pull back the bow and arrow and let your life fly and see where it can go. If you do that, you have no idea of the endless possibilities of your life. Now, that's all I have for this speech. I hope it helped you. Feel free to rewatch it anytime. I'll leave this up and posted. And anytime you're in a down or dark moment, feel free to rewatch. I'm glad it helped you in any way.